Brandon Lawson, in the summer of 2013, a 26-year-old oil worker from Texas named Brandon Lawson arrived home from work and immediately got into an argument with his long-term girlfriend. Things had been pretty tense between the couple in the days leading up to that evening, as Brandon had frequently been working Monday through Sunday, and the youngest of the couple's 2 children was only a few months old. Also, Brandon had recently relapsed into addiction, which further strained their relationship. It's unclear if his girlfriend kicked him out of the house or if he decided to leave after about an hour of arguing. But whatever the case, Brandon got in his silver Ford F-150 and drove away from his home in San Angelo at midnight on August 8th, after which he was never seen again. The incredibly strange events that took place over the next few hours have turned this case into one of the most mysterious and disturbing disappearances of the decade. About half an hour after leaving his house, Brandon made a phone call to his brother Kyle, letting him know that he was a few miles south of Brun on a stretch of highway in the middle of nowhere, and that he was out of gas. After fetching a gas can from Brandon's house, which was about a mile away from his own, Kyle got into his car and prepared to drive to his brother's location. But things didn't exactly go according to plan for Brandon. And a few minutes later, at around 12:50 a.m., he made this disturbing call to 911.
911.
Emergency.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. The state just pushed some guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. Got taken to the woods. Please hurry.
Okay, now run that by me.
I tried talking to him. I actually ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
Got the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah, no, I need the cops.
Okay. Is anybody hurt?
Although it's hard to make out what's going on in the background, many people have alleged that they can hear the sound of gunshots and other people talking in the audio, but it's hard to confirm what exactly was being said and what was even going on during the call. 8 minutes after Brandon's 911 call, another driver called the cops to inform that a silver F-150 had been parked pretty dangerously on the highway, with the back of the truck sticking out into the other lane. Following his call to 911, Brandon continued to contact his brother Kyle by phone, and they exchanged a series of strange phone calls. Even though these next calls weren't recorded, according to Kyle, Brandon sounded extremely paranoid, repeated claiming that he was being chased out of town by the Mexicans in the neighborhood. When Kyle asked him if he had been using drugs again, Brandon immediately denied it. At around 1:10 a.m., Kyle arrived at the location where the truck was parked, but Brandon was nowhere to be seen. A few minutes after his brother's arrival, Brandon once again called Kyle and made a series of disturbing statements, claiming that he could see Kyle and the officer that had just arrived at the scene, that he was bleeding and that they needed to hurry. Disturbingly, he was nowhere in sight for the next few minutes. Kyle continued to try to get in touch with Brandon, but all his calls went straight to voicemail. After failing to find him that night, the cops launched an official search for Brandon, complete with helicopters, thermal cameras, dogs, and a massive search party. Unfortunately, Brandon was nowhere to be found. It was later revealed that Brandon had cashed out his 401k on the night of his disappearance, suggesting he might have vanished on his own accord. However, due to his distressed phone calls to 911 and his brother, it's also possible that Brandon fell victim to some sort of cartel activity or that someone ran into, on the road, attacked him. In February 2022, a small search party consisting of family members and friends found a pair of shoes and clothing that matched the description of what Brandon was wearing on the night of his disappearance. And after searching the area, the cops found human remains near the location of the shoes and clothing. Even though the remains were sent to be tested more than 2 years ago, there still hasn't been a definitive answer for whether they belong to Brandon or what could have happened to him that night. Hopefully, with time, more conclusive of answers will surface to give Brandon's family a sense of much-needed closure. Until then, this will probably remain as one of the most disturbing missing persons cases from recent years. Found Amber DeCaro was a 20-year-old Canadian First Nations woman from Fort McMurray, Alberta, In August of 2012, she flew from Alberta to Edmonton International Airport and booked a hotel room with her 1-year-old son and a female friend for a short vacation. That night, she got excited about the trip and decided to hitchhike into the city by herself, after which she was never seen again. When Amber didn't return to the hotel the next day, her friend called her mother, who immediately called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Soon after Amber was declared a missing person, the authorities dug into her phone records and found that she had received a phone call while she was in the company of an unidentified man. The recording is pretty unsettling, especially since it marked the last time she was ever heard alive.
No, this is Are you kidding me? You better not be taking me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going in the city, are we? No, we're not. Then where are these roads going to?
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yo, where are we going?
50th Street.
50th Street.
50th Street.
East, right? Over now.
Bravo.
In the recording, a male driver can be heard reassuring Amber that they're heading where she wants to go, but she doesn't seem to be buying the story and is obviously pretty distressed. On August 28th, the cops released the phone conversation, but they didn't officially start investigating the disappearance until well after a month after Amber was reported missing. Sadly, when Amber's mother pressured the cops to do something and help her find her daughter, they dismissed her and told her that Amber was probably just out partying and would turn up soon. Tragically, on September 1st, 2012, just 4 days after the audio from the eerie conversation was released, the remains of Amber's body were found on a rural property near Loke County by a group of horseback riders. One of the most frustrating aspects of this case is how unprofessionally the disappearance was handled by the Canadian police. After just 1 month of searching, Amber was taken off missing persons list based on a series of suspicious, unconfirmed, and anonymous sightings in Edmonton, and it took her mother an entire month to get her back on the list. By the time she was put back on the list by the negligent cops, who made the unforgivable mistake her property, which could have been used as evidence, had already been accidentally destroyed after it was recovered from her hotel. Over the years, a few women have come forward claiming to know the identity of the man in the recording, with all of them accusing the same man. The authorities say they've looked into him, but he wasn't declaring a person of interest. A few years ago, another man came forward and claimed that the man in the recording was his father, an American citizen with no legal standing in Canada, who had been living on a ranch in the greater Edmonton area. If the man's testimony is to be believed, his father is also responsible for several other mysterious disappearances and deaths that have taken place in the area over the last few years. One of the most disturbing aspects in the recording is the audible dishonesty in the man's voice, which is pretty much clear as day. When Amber asks if he's sure they're going into the city, and he responds with an extremely fake, "Absolutely," it's also pretty messed up. How the cops handled the case from start to finish, and many people suspect the cause of the unprofessional management of the case was just straight-up racism against the Indigenous woman. Hopefully, we'll someday have an explanation for what happened that night to Amber Taro. But for now, the case remains a pretty disturbing mother.